She posted my private poems online to mock me, laughed with her friends, and said I'd never be anything more than a sad boy with a notebook. So I collected every piece she mocked, published them, and watched the same people who laughed at me wait in line for my book signing while she hid behind her phone. I've always been the quiet type. Not shy, exactly, just someone who prefers to live on the edges of noise. My girlfriend, Marissa, was the opposite. She filled every room she entered with energy, laughter, stories, drama. She loved being noticed. I loved watching her glow. We'd been together almost 2 years when the journal incident happened. I wrote poetry in private. Always had. It wasn't for anyone, certainly not for attention. Little fragments, observations, lines about love and loss, and the things I never said out loud. Marissa knew I wrote, but I never showed her the journal. It wasn't a secret, it was just mine. Something sacred, in a world where everything else was shared, liked, commented on, and consumed. One night, she came over to my apartment for dinner. We drank wine, watched a movie, fell asleep on the couch. When I woke up the next morning, she was gone. I thought nothing of it. She sometimes left early for her spin class. But around noon, my phone started blowing up. At first, it was just a few notifications. Then dozens. Then hundreds. Marissa had posted a series of Instagram stories that said, "Found his little poetry journal, face with tears of joy, face with tears of joy. He writes about feelings. Actual poems. Like a middle school diary. Read them to the girls last night." We couldn't stop laughing. She even included photos of my handwriting, lines circled and annotated with mocking captions like, "Cringe alert. Bro thinks he's Shakespeare." The final slide said, "Ladies, if your man writes poetry, he's definitely the type to cry after sex, skull, skull, skulled." By the time I saw it, thousands had viewed it. Mutual friends, co-workers, people I barely knew. I stared at my phone in disbelief. It didn't even hurt at first. It just felt surreal. Like watching someone light your house on fire and laugh while it burned. I didn't text her, didn't call, didn't post anything back. Instead, I deleted my social media accounts and went dark for a while. I spent the next week in silence, journaling, not about her, but about betrayal. The raw kind. The kind that makes you rethink who you are for ever trusting anyone. Then something unexpected happened. A friend from college, Nate, texted me out of the blue. He'd seen the screenshots, too. He was furious on my behalf. "Dude, those poems are actually good. Why don't you publish them? Make something out of it." I laughed it off at first. I told him it wasn't that simple. But then I opened the journal again, and for the first time, I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt clarity, because the words she'd mocked were honest. And honesty, it turned out, had more power than her ridicule ever could. So I typed every single poem into my laptop. Edited, formatted, rewrote. Then I uploaded them to a small writing platform under the pseudonym The Boy She Laughed At. The title of the collection? Cringe. When I uploaded Cringe online, I didn't expect anything. No followers, no fanfare, just me throwing my words into the void. But the internet has a funny way of finding what it's not supposed to. At first, it was a trickle, a few kind comments from strangers, a repost here and there. Someone wrote, "This isn't cringe, it's beautiful. Who hurt you?" I smiled bitterly at that one. By the end of the week, it wasn't a trickle anymore. It was a flood. Thousands of shares, then hundreds of thousands. Lines from my poems were being quoted, turned into TikToks, even tattooed. People wrote essays about emotional vulnerability, about men expressing pain in art. The phrase "the boy she laughed at" started trending. Someone on Reddit dug up Marissa's old story screenshots, the ones she thought she'd deleted, and posted them with the caption, "So, this is the guy whose poems she mocked." The comments were brutal. They called her cruel, insecure, manipulative. People screenshotted her old posts, found her Instagram, and flooded it with thousands of clown emojis and quotes from my poetry. I didn't participate. I didn't even like or comment. I just watched, quietly, as the same public stage she dragged me onto turned its spotlight on her. Then came the email. It was from a small independent publishing house in New York. They said they loved Cringe and wanted to make it a book. The editor's note read, "It's raw, painfully honest, and unpretentious. Exactly what people need right now." Within a month, I had a contract, $100,000 advance and royalties. Nate helped me with the legal side. I bought him dinner that night and told him everything. He just laughed and said, "Man, She wanted to humiliate you. Instead, you turned it into your resume. Then came the call. Marissa. I hadn't heard her voice in months. Hey, can we talk? Her tone was soft, shaky. I could tell she'd been crying. I just wanted to say I'm sorry, she said quickly. I didn't mean to humiliate you. It was stupid. I was drunk and, I don't know, trying to be funny. I didn't say anything. You don't understand what it's like now, she continued. People hate me. My friends stopped talking to me. Everyone thinks I'm some kind of monster. I sighed quietly. You did that yourself, Marissa. There was a long pause. Then she whispered, Do you hate me? I said the truest thing I could. No, I just don't care anymore. And that silence that followed, that was the closure I'd been waiting for. When Cringe was finally published, the first page carried a short dedication. To everyone who's ever been laughed at for feeling deeply, thank you for not hardening. No names, no bitterness, just truth. A year later, my poetry tour sold out. Marissa faded into the digital noise she'd once craved. And me? I learned that sometimes, the most poetic revenge isn't fire or fury, it's success in silence. Update 1. It's been a year since I hit post on that first poem. A single upload made out of heartbreak and humiliation, and now, it's the reason I wake up every day doing what I love. The book, Cringe, Letters I Wrote Before I Learned Not to Care, sold over 300,000 copies. It got translated into 3 languages. Teachers have emailed me saying they use my poems in their classes when talking about vulnerability and modern masculinity. And me? I'm still in disbelief most days. I live in a small apartment in Seattle now. Nothing fancy, just quiet and mine. I write at the same table I used to cry at. Except now, the tears are gone. I've got coffee, sunlight, and a little brass plaque by my desk that my editor gifted me. It reads, From Cringe to Courage. That's become my mantra. Marissa didn't vanish entirely. Every few months, I get a new fake account trying to follow me. Always with a flower in the username, always private. I never accept. But I do know she lost a lot after the backlash. Her old influencer page is gone. The friends she laughed with at my expense stopped posting with her. Someone told me she works quietly now, off social media. Good for her. We both learned our lessons, just in very different currencies. At readings, people often ask me, would you take her back if she apologized again? And I always give the same answer. Forgiveness isn't about letting someone return. It's about letting yourself leave. The audience always claps at that part, but it's not a performance. It's the truth. My next book is almost done. It's not about heartbreak this time. It's about healing, gratitude, and the strange beauty of moving on. Working title, Unwritten Things. Sometimes I still think about that night, when my worst moment became the best thing that ever happened to me. And I smile, because she called my words cringe. She was right, in a way. Cringe was human. Cringe was honest. Cringe was real. And real is what made me free. Final update that it's been almost 3 years since that night. Since she mocked me in front of her friends. Since I published those poems, since everything flipped upside down. Last Friday, I had a book signing in New York. Biggest one yet. A line wrapped around the block. Students, couples, a few people clutching worn-out copies of Cringe. I still get nervous before these things. I'm not a celebrity. I'm just a guy who writes about heartbreak and hope. Halfway through, I looked up and saw her. Marissa. She looked different. Softer. Older, but not in a bad way, just less loud. The kind of quiet that comes after a few hard lessons. She stood in line like everyone else, holding my book. When it was her turn, she smiled. A small, uncertain one, and said, I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted to say, I read every poem. I'm proud of what you did. I didn't feel anger. Not anymore. I just nodded and said, Thank you. You inspired it. She laughed, just once, the kind of laugh that says, Yeah, I know. Then she added softly, I never thought words could build something that lasts. I signed her book, wrote only one line. For the lesson. She blinked, read it, and whispered, You really did turn it into art. And that was it. No dramatic tears, no closure speech, no what could have been. Just 2 people who shared a moment that once broke them, now standing on opposite sides of healing. After the event, my editor asked if I wanted to celebrate. I said no. I just wanted to walk. So I did, through the cool night air, past the glowing windows, the buzz of the city. And for the first time, I realized something. Every cruel laugh, every betrayal, Every time I was told I was too emotional. All of it had been the scaffolding for the life I have now. I didn't just forgive her. I thanked her, silently, in my heart, for lighting the match that burned down the version of me that cared what others thought. That night, I opened my next manuscript. The first line reads, "They laughed at what broke me. I built my world from the pieces." And as I typed, I smiled, not out of spite, not out of pride, but out of peace. Because in the end, her mockery gave me my meaning. And that's the kind of irony even a poet couldn't write better.